Bakar. She's a Deputy Communications Director at the Presidency and Campaign Spokesperson. Good evening and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And then I have Nanekria Efriye Buzia, who's a youth activist. Hello, Nanekria. Thank you so much for being here. And of course, Lady Gabriela Tete, a member of the NDC National Communications Team and former staffer at the Office of the Vice President, and one of the very few women I've met who's taller than me. So that's a thing. I'm usually used to being the tallest one in the room, so it's a little different. But thank you so much for joining us this
Thank you for having us.
So let's get straight into the conversation. Let me start with you, Fatima. So before you got into politics, because we really want to explore this evening how politics is different for women. So the feel of it, not just the challenges, because we've talked about the challenges. You know, we know the things that women have to go through, being insulted. Even our socialization doesn't always allow us as women to support other women in politics. So with the challenges, you know, we'll get to that, but the feel of it. So before you got into politics, what was your view on politics when you were on the outside?
Okay, Animwaa, good evening. And good evening to your cherished listeners and to Ghanaians. For party politics, I actually didn't know much about it until I got to the university. But for politics in general, as in participating in governance process at the local level, from primary school to junior high to SHS, I always had a leadership position of a sort, whether I was a head girl or I was an SRC organizing secretary at the local level and was on some committee at the regional level. So I have always had that exposure and always thought of, you know, doing something in relation to leadership and having my opinion heard. And even before I started school, I realized that with the benefit of hindsight, I realized that my mom had such a huge influence on me, although she wasn't a politician herself. But what happened was that my mom has a choba in our community, and she had, at the time, she had had it for over 30 years, and she had become a natural leader in the community and a mother to everybody. And she is strong-willed and always has an opinion. So she raised me thinking that I can voice out on any issue and anything. So my mom's kids are quite confident when you compare that to the average girl in our Zongo community because of the kind of person she was. So my transition into student politics and into party politics at the national level did not come with so much challenges because I had done it for a longer period than I could even think of what politics was about. So it wasn't that difficult, and I didn't have any negative opinion whatsoever about it. I felt not really.
You still have
there are challenges, but I think it's always important to have women in it.
Okay.
Yes.
So you really don't feel like there's negativity when it comes to women getting into politics? Because I feel like your story seems to be the exception to the rule. Most women who have gone into politics have always almost always expressed a certain sort of hesitation about what awaits them once they put their lives out there.
You know, per our socialization, our culture, our religious beliefs, I know they are diverse, but especially those of us whose roots are from the Abrahamic view, we are raised not to be leaders as women. So there is always that kind of bloat on your conscience as if you are doing too much. That is pushing you to limit yourself, even when someone has not asked you to. You can't go this far, you can't be president, you can't be this. But you yourself, because of the kind of socialization that we have, you may think you can't do it. But politics is a rough field. It's intimidating for everybody, and especially for women. So for every single woman who walks through that door, they know what awaits. That you have to work hard, you have to persevere. There are no hand-holding, not a lot of that in politics that I know, that you have to work and earn every single title. And it's even unfortunate because you have to prove that you can do this, you are competent, and your male counterparts may not have to prove anything because based on the kind of culture that we were raised in, it's as if leadership comes naturally to men. And for a woman, even when you are the best in the room, you have to pretend as if, you know what, I don't want to lead, I want to serve, you know, I'm a woman. So there is that kind of influence with respect to the kind of socialization we have, culture, religion, and all other factors that we find in our environment. But irrespective of the challenges, for a population like ours, where we have women being majority of the nation, we ought to have representation for women.
Totally. Let me come to you. Can I call you Gabriella? Is that okay?
You can call me Gabby.
Okay, Gabby. Okay, Gabby. So pretty much the same question. Before you got into it, what were your views on politics like? So for those of us who are on the outside thinking, maybe in 4 years, maybe in 8 years, you know?
You know, in my family, my dad was into politics. He was a young activist from the time of Kwame Nkrumah and the CPP.
Okay.
And through his activism, he got into this whole young pioneer movement thing. And he got himself a scholarship to study out of Ghana. He was now he's deceased now, so he's a former school prefect at Ghana National in his time, the boys prefect. And he always had this urge to always give back to this country. When he went out to study after his master's, he worked in the UK and in Hungary for some years, and he came back to Ghana. Initially, he was supposed to have gone to Kumasi. He changed to go to the Central Region because that's his home region, and served in Central Region for all over 50-something years up until he died.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And in that period, when he returned, he got himself involved in almost every president. I think it started with Dr. Liman's government. So he was supporting at the regional level with all kinds of committees and commissions and all that. Now, that translated into the kind of conversations that he used to have with us as his children. Because when he goes for these meetings and he comes back, he gets all excited about this. They're going to do this project in this community, and it's going to serve these people, it's going to provide this, it's going to do that. When you're growing up around those kind of conversations, sometimes you're like, oh, you two, can't we talk about something other than these things? Yeah. But whether you like it or not, subconsciously, it rubs off you. So as we were all maturing, he went to the NDPC as a regional commissioner for Central Region. That's where he was before he passed on. And then the opportunity came for his constituents, our village folks, our hometown people, to look for a representative for an MP. And they wanted him to go. But he said he couldn't leave his job as a medical doctor to go into full-time politics. So in that case, Hannah should go. And Hannah was already a practicing lawyer. So it was after he died, and then the responsibility fell on Hannah.
Okay. So it's almost like a family business.
So then it became like a family thing that you found yourself in.
Yeah.
And I, at that time, I was very young. So, and I also had a lot of time on my hands. So I was always following, we are going here, we're going to this program, we are going to this community to do something, help me with this research. And still subconsciously, I wasn't realizing that the call to serve was lingering. Because my mindset was, okay, let's go, we are going. You want companion, let's go. I'll go with you. Until in 2008, when during the runoff for the presidential, in 2008 we had a first round which went 40-something% each way. So for the runoff, the NDC said they need fresh faces to do adverts for the party. And she came home and she just looked at my face and she was like, when we went for the meeting, this is what they said. So I think that you have to do an advert. And I was like, but don't you realize that if I go and do an advert run, and at that time, in my working career, I was working in the public service. I was then working at the Shippers Council as an assistant research and development officer. So when she came and said, you have to do an advert, I was like, do you know, if I want to be a public servant, that was what I want for my career. I can't do that. And she was like, oh, well, what the heck? I mean, we're going to win the elections. When we win the elections, you get a better job. Go and do the advert. So I was like, okay, well, for one, we want to win this election. And everybody has to sacrifice one way or the other.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and did it. And then I ended up doing 2 adverts. And when NDC won, there was also the opportunity to serve, to volunteer as a secretary on the transition team. And then I went to sign up for that as well.
Okay.
So one way or the other, I kept unconsciously just following.
Yeah.
And this is how far following has brought me.
Because
Because after that transition, I went to work in a scanning company in the port. Then I had to leave that job because I was told that I'd put my sister in conflict of interest. So I had to leave that job.
Okay.
So you volunteer, but you also sacrifice. That's the point I'm making. And then I got another job at STC as Business Development Manager. And then after STC, then NDC won again with President Mahama. And then Vice President Emisata. And Vice President Emisata was put in charge of the transition for 2013.
Okay.
And he needed somebody who had an idea of how the 2009 transition went.
Which you were the secretary of?
Which I was
so
the secretary
you volunteered
of. No, I didn't volunteer. This time he called me.
Okay.
This time he called me, and then he said he didn't put me in charge as chairman of the transition, and then he needs my help to help organize this thing. So I was like, okay, why not? And then after that, I ended up staying in his office as a deputy director. And that was how I built my career in politics.
So politics kind of happened to you.
It happened to me.
As opposed to you choosing deliberately.
But, you have an option. There's an option for you to do frontline politics.
Okay.
And there's an option for you in the background more as a technocrat. Supporting.
Okay.
And for the most part, I was in the background more or less like a technocrat.
Yes.
Supporting.
Until now.
Because Obobia called and said, well, now they needed females to come and join the communication team because it was too male dominated.
Okay.
And they want former appointees. So I have to go again. So another volunteer, they're called, you go. I mean,
okay. I mean,
that's just the job.
Yeah, those are some interesting stories so far. So it seems like with the two of you, it kind of happened to you, almost like you were kind of groomed for it, and then you kind of went to it. But let me come to you, Nanikia, because you're an activist. So presumably for you, you're trying to get more of the youth or more of women who are young into politics, but you're not actually in politics.
Yes, I am not actually in politics.
Okay, so if you're not in politics, what is it that you see that you can encourage women to get into, if you get what I mean?
Yeah, so I get you very well, but I think first of all, let me send a warm regards to your listeners. For me, it gets refreshing when we have to engage people on such social and political fiber, because these conversations, if we like it or not, is what will make us or make us. So I come from a perspective where I believe that leadership is everything we need in the country. And so regardless of the fact that we talk about politics is just about leadership, where we would have to get people who serve as more of representatives to more or less manage the affairs of us. So for me, I have more or less been in student leadership. And so from SRC Vice President Aspirant to SRC Women's Commissioner to some little works in the National Union of Women Students and other things. For me, what I think is that the ladies and the young women coming up feel that, yes, we all want to go into politics, we all admire the people we see out there, but also we feel that it's very difficult to get out there because of the stories they hear. And so the stories start from more of intimidating, where even in the SRCs, the General Assemblies, you go in there and then sometimes you are forced to shut down because you are a lady. Immediately you get a little bit forceful, then it gets like you are too overly ambitious, or you are more or less going into... It's defined as it's a man's world. And
yeah,
so
of course.
If you want to get in there, then you have to sacrifice something. And sometimes what you sacrifice is, I wouldn't call your peace of mind, but definitely it's a tag that is put on more of being a little bit domineering, or it's seen as you are dreaming beyond your boundaries. And so that is the view out there. But also I think when you have a deeper conversation with the people aside these challenges, you realize that there is a passion to serve, and so sometimes the challenges is not something that deter them from. So you go into Tesco, go into teen, then you see very strong and vibrant young ladies who want to more or less move into the politics. But then again, I think initially I was talking about it, and the fear.
So why aren't you in politics yourself?
That's a very good question, but I also feel I feel it's a process.
Okay, so
Sometimes
you'll get into it.
I feel the stage before you get there, you need preparation, and
You
so
haven't answered the question.
for me, I think that I'm preparing myself when I get in the stage.
best
good,
testing ground is there.
I would get there.
Okay, so let me move on to let me come to you, Fatima. I'm gonna ask you a question, but I'm not asking you to talk about the values or to promote your political party. But I want to know why you chose your political party, because we know that men choose their political party for certain reasons. So for example, on top of their minds would be maybe job availability. You know, if this party is in power, will my business, do this, would do this, do that. We also know that women choose everything for different reasons than men. I mean, it's very rare to find that men and women, choose the same things for the same reason. So why did you choose your political party without, it being a manifesto of your actual political party?
First of all, I think it was the people I saw.
Okay.
Sometimes a lot of politicians may think that it's just about what they see. But it's mostly not what they say. It's what the people see and the kind of perception that they have about them.
So what you said, not what they say?
Not necessarily, not
Okay.
all the time.
Okay, no, I didn't get the say clearly.
The way we form perception about young people. When I was at the secondary school, I saw Honorable Patricia PJ. At that time, she was a parliamentary candidate for Asamase constituency, and I was at Kumasi Academy, final year. She would visit the school. The way she carried herself about, the way she spoke, for someone who was already a student leader from the basic level, I just saw myself in the woman.
Okay.
I was like, this is exactly what I want to do, or who I want to be. I want to grow up and be someone like this person.
Okay.
So sometimes we, the younger ones, especially for our generation, because of television, radio, social media, we are not reinventing the wheel. We've had the benefit of other people occupying certain positions through political office, and we've seen some of them and realized that it is doable. We won't be the first. The footprints are there. And only if we can watch them and follow them and attend some mentorship programs, we will be able to become what they are.
Okay.
So I think that was a huge influence on me. Although at that time, I didn't even have any politician in my family. But because of what I saw at the secondary school, the moment I got to University
Was
of
she a
Ghana, I
member
joined
of
TESCOM.
of this particular political
At that time,
party?
I didn't know anything about party politics.
Okay, so I still need you to explain why this political party.
For NPP, it's strictly about ideology.
Okay.
I wanted to be a liberal even before what I knew being a liberal was, because they spoke about fundamental human rights at the regional SRC. And I am for human rights.
Okay, so what attracts you to politics is human rights. It's
Yes,
being in a position where you can fight for
in a
other
party
people.
and being in a position where you can fight for human rights.
Okay.
But that was just one of the things that I would say for NPP I wanted to be in, because they say, oh, they are liberals. Oh, okay, I am for human rights.
Okay.
So if their ideology is about human rights, then I'm right there with them.
Okay.
But some of those things may be a little bit abstract, and you won't know how to translate them into actual action because you are thinking human rights.
Okay.
But the moment I saw someone like Honorable Patricia PJ, and I saw the way they were doing the politics,
You
was
saw
just
what human rights
yes,
looked
it
like
was just
personified.
attractive.
Okay.
And I wanted to be just that.
Okay.
So as soon as I got to Legon, I joined TESCOM, and then I pursued it and I became a JCR vice president. I went for NUCS elections and then to the NPP headquarters. So I was there until I was about 28. I moved to DR. I got an appointment at the Dankwa Institute as a secretary and later as a programs coordinator. Then in 2015, they were looking for younger people in the campaign team, because age became a very big issue about the candidature of the presidential candidate, and I don't know why that was an issue anyways. So they were looking
He was
for
more than 70, that's why.
they were looking for young, vibrant, outspoken persons. And because I had done student politics for over a long period, at that time for over 10 years, people were just saying,
Naturally
call
felt,
Fati.
okay.
If you want someone to speak on campaign platforms,
Okay.
call
So
Fati,
basically,
yeah.
the basic answer to the question, though, is that it was human rights. and they're
Absolutely,
fighting for that.
absolutely.
How was that different for
Absolutely.
you?
For me, it
or-
was about the people.
okay.
Because growing up, again, taking inspiration from my dad, here was somebody who spent his whole career treating sick people, but still took the time out to go and think about what was in the developmental interest of the central region.
Okay.
So every time that he came back from all those meetings, as I mentioned earlier, it was always about, we are putting a bathing facility in this village. And you wonder, why should you be interested in a bathing facility in a village?
random
Why
village
shouldn't they
somewhere,
go
yeah.
and have bathrooms in their own homes? Because they just can't afford to have bathrooms. So they have this makeshift palm kennel
Yeah.
construct, but you want to upgrade those communities. Maybe some development partner has come with some money and you want to put it to some use in sanitation. And then that's what they want to do. So then he comes and talks about all these things. So when I finished school, at first I thought I was going to go into the private sector and do business,
Okay.
until I found myself in the public sector. And I realized that it was actually serving people that excited me
Okay.
and gave me some form of contentment.
Okay.
So coming into politics, I figured, well, the NDC is more people-oriented. The NDC welcomes everybody, irrespective of what your social class is. The NDC takes
It's
the
beginning
views.
to sound like a manifesto.
No, we haven't gotten into that one yet. Believe me, if I started on, you hear me rapping. The NDC supports young people, and I don't know if it's part of the grooming process, but from my group, you have people like Ablakwa, Omani, Felix. We're all very good friends, and we all were mentored around the same period.
Okay.
And we all given opportunities to serve in different capacities. And I think that we all did the best that we could in the capacities that we were given. At the age of 24, I was head of business development in a public institution at STC.
STC, yeah.
I started in public service as a professional public servant. It would have taken me 16 years in the real public service
Yeah.
program to get to that level. I got there in less than 4 or 5 years, because of politics. And that also gave me another platform to be able to exert whatever gift that I'm also gifted with,
Okay.
and to contribute to nation building.
Okay.
And that performance at that level also contributed to now being given additional and a high responsibility in the vice president's office.
Okay, so basically, for both of you again, the underlying factor, or just the thing that decided for you was service to people, except that maybe in different ways. So there's fighting for the human rights, and then there was the service to people and perhaps the relatability, which we associate with the NDC sometimes a little bit more than the NPP, which is not my personal view, but which is just the general
We are
view of
people-centered.
Ghanaians.
No, that's her view.
No, we are
That's not a
people-centered.
popular view. The youth are mostly with the NPP, so that's a personal view.
So so let me come to you on that. How do you pick a political party as a young person? How do you pick a political party?
Okay, so that's interesting. So personally, I wouldn't say that I'm politically neutral. Definitely, I will belong to a political party. But in the selection of the political party I belong, I felt that it came from different angles. So the first one was that so way back University of Ghana, I was with the entrepreneurship team, and so I realized that one of the major challenges of the entrepreneurship with that team would be, okay, finances. How do we look at a way of financing it and everything? Now, if you look at the various political parties, and you get to know that, okay, there is a political party that believes in capitalism, a political party that believes that, yes, let's allow individuals to operate within their own freedom and their own merit with less intervention from the government. Then you realize that irrespective of where they are going, at least it aligns with your personal belief. But I also think that for me, the selection of that particular political party was based on a family line.
Okay.
So that would be it. But
when you say family line, you mean the influence of family in your life?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But also on a general view, I feel that people select political parties not necessarily based on ideologies for now. It's about who is able to push them where they feel belonged.
Where they feel like they belong.
As human beings, one of our basic social needs is acceptance and a feel of belonging. And so if people go into the university and they tell you, oh, immediately I stepped into campus, the first thing that approached me was the NDZ. They made me feel very, I belonged here. And so it's not necessarily because they are coming from there, but also an atmosphere created for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you really look at the political atmosphere in Ghana, I think the ideologies are more of an abstract, because there are times you see MPP rolling out social policies, the free SHS and other things. There are times you go into the NDC. So it's not...
They overlap. Yeah. Yes. I see what you mean. Okay, so let's get to the nitty-gritties of it. So we know that politics is a dirty game. I don't think anybody's going to run away from that. And we've heard it over the years, apart from politics, even just in life, men and women are constantly competing for positions, for influence, for everything. And it's no different in politics. Unless, of course, you are going to tell us tonight that it is. But let's get, what is it really like to, and I know that, perhaps for PR purposes, we may be tempted to paint our political parties, as though, they are, but you said it yourself, there's no hand holding. Like, they are pushing the women to the front. And we believe that they are pushing the women to the front. But there must be some sort of friction. There must be we want a real picture so that women, because if we say that we want women to go into politics, then it's important that we prepare them, and you prepare people by painting a real picture of what they should expect. I remember when I started wanting to have children, my mother said to me that just know that when you have children, I will not babysit. So when you are planning your children, don't plan in mind that your mother is going to look after them. So that same ideology, give us what it's like to be in the middle of it with the men, fighting over whatever it is that you fight about.
I always tell people that we don't have a different breed of human beings in politics than you will find at multimedia or in the banking sector or any other sector. So we the people make the politics. It's
and
not
feel
as
free
if,
to come in at any time, Gabriel and Anika,
we the people make the politics. It's not as if there is a cabal or some category of human beings with certain IQ or anything to end up in politics. But most importantly, there is a peculiar challenge facing women irrespective of the sector they find themselves in.
Yes, but we want to talk
balance.
About the politics.
Yes. The challenge has to do with resources and balance. Now you may find someone in an institution and the person is pregnant and they'll say, oh, she's slowing us down, and you want to give birth and go on leave. You say that, oh, go on a show at 7. You want to say that you have to bath your kids and all that. They will create excuses for you when you don't have any excuse for yourself.
Okay.
So we, the women in politics, are pushing that it's okay. Don't find excuses for us. We know what it entails to do this job. And we are already prepared and scheduled ourselves in a way that we will be able to execute the other responsibilities aside our political role and so get you results. Mm-hmm. So we are pushing strongly for that kind of perception and that situation of finding excuses for women. Why, you know what, you should have stayed home because you are pregnant. You shouldn't go on this show because you know what, it's too early. You have to take care of your kids. We will be working on strategies at night. You have to go home and cook. Okay. So that is one of the challenges. But the biggest challenge has to do with resources. We are talking about party politics. We are talking about elections. In this year's election, we have about 50 women who are contesting in both NDC and NPP for the 275 constituencies. Per the laws of this land, our constitution, They are supposed to pick at least half of the ministers from parliament. We have 50 contesting. Not 50 have won, 50 contesting. So already, before we go into the election, you know that at the end of the day, that deficit is going to affect the number of female ministers we have and also trickle down to other areas. Why are the women not out there contesting? We know some of the challenges of elections. We don't have the resources. It is not there. The cost of contesting during the primaries and then the main elections, women are very resourceful. But like for what politics has become in our country, which I think is a conversation we really need to look at, irrespective of where you belong, is political party funding. Because in other jurisdictions, you can't even donate $10,000 to a political party. Because there is state funding or other arrangement for them to audit how money comes in.
Okay,
so
when we talk about political party funding, the arguments can be made that the same challenge is met by men as well. Because there are some men who have access to money and some who don't. There's some constituents where, you know, people are better equipped to stand. Meanwhile, you can tell that the person who really cares about the community doesn't have the money to stand. So I feel like that's a general challenge, the
Not
political
really.
party fund. I really want to talk about the specific things that come up.
And I'm saying not really.
So
It's not a general challenge. The reason
you don't
being
think
that
political is it not easier perhaps for a woman? I mean, if for example the NPP say that, oh, we are promoting women to stand as MPs, does it then not go in that line of thought that then if there are women who are available, then we will push them forward or we will fund them if we have the money? So if we're going along that line, then it means that it's sorted. So the issues that you would face would not then be, oh, my political party, because all political parties are saying that we are going to give women equity.
Well,
if you are going to stand them, unless they are saying it's not true.
If I can land on that quite just briefly, during the primaries, my political party, the New Patriotic Party, gave 50% discount to women who wanted to file. So if the men are paying 20,000, the women were paid. But I'm saying that if you have a sister who has been a housewife for the past 10 years, how does she raise that money to even go and file? And filing is the least of your budget for a political campaign. You have women who, per our culture, they did not inherit some lands. You go to the formal sector, you have less than 20% of women working in the formal sector. Even if you go to the captains of industries, the numbers are even lesser. The resources are not there. And
do you
scientific.
agree with her?
But
That
it's about your ability to mobilize.
Okay.
And you also have to understand that the constituencies are
And
different.
this is speaking is I'm sorry I'm not introducing, so that was Fatima Abubakar who was speaking, the Deputy Communications Director at the Presidency, and I've moved now to Gabriela Sessa, who is a member of the NDC National Communications team.
Yes.
So from Fatima to Gabi,
So the constituencies are different. When you work in a predominantly rural constituency, the expectations are not that much compared to when you work in a very urbanized constituency. Now, running into office, when you want to running for office, and you are campaigning against men who, as Fatih was trying to explain the dynamics in our society, you're running against men who are better mobilizers of resources. They understand when they approach a business person, for example, for support, they understand very well that their expectations when they win, and if their party wins power, they're going to use them to influence a lot of things.
And of course, when they approach the business person, they also don't have to deal with the let me slide under your skirt before I give yes, which
harassment
is okay.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, so the men are. It's much easier to play ball with the men than it is with the females.
Okay.
And if you also observed, you have a lot more of very educated females who are in those positions. And they're not the kind of people that you can easily compromise with some of these requests.
Okay.
You know, so the women always come across as, oh, this one, she's too stubborn. This one, she's too hard. You know.
She has too many principles.
You know, so you want to find a way of going around to get something done, and she's like, no, let's go pay what the procedures are, because she also doesn't want to get into trouble. If we get into trouble, nobody's coming to our defense, and I've been in trouble many times, so I know very well that nobody came to my defense, and nobody will come to your defense. So you keep to your principles, and the men, interestingly, have a cunning way of dealing with it. That's the real fact of the situation.
Do you agree? Yeah, okay.
Unfortunately, too, you also have, as you mentioned earlier, about the issue of the harassment. It's not just a question of some people trying to even find their way under your skirt. There's some of them are so blatantly raw that it's either you go that way or you forget it.
Wow.
You know, so if you don't want to go that way, then you can just forget it.
Have you experienced it?
But look at the shape I'm in Ghana here.
Have you?
But
have you
in
experienced
politics, I haven't.
it? Okay.
And I
But
think
when you say in
especially-
politics you haven't, it means that in life you
Oh
have.
yes, because I've worked in other companies.
Okay.
I've had a couple of harassment experiences. But when I joined politics, interestingly, for some reasons they look at us in a certain light.
Like you people are hard already. Like
Yeah,
ish.
with the scarf and all that. I don't know if that has
I
any
haven't had
influence on
experience
it,
with-
but in politics, I haven't.
Politicians, I've had it as a public servant.
Okay.
You know, and then you have a choice to walk away.
Okay.
So you walk away.
Well, we're going to go on a commercial break just for a few minutes. When we come back, we want to talk about if women can get dirty as perhaps men can
Insulting.
get in. Yes, you know, doing the back and forth and the, you know, all of that. When we come back, we'll talk about that. We have Fatima, Gabriela, and Nanekia in the studio with us. Don't go anywhere.
UDS Faculty of Education, in partnership with NORSAC and Oxfam, is inviting the general public to participate in the 2020 National Political Parties Debate on Education Policy in Ghana. Date is Wednesday, 25th of November, 2020. Time is from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Venue is the UDS Multipurpose Auditorium, Tamale. This program will be live on Joy News, Joy FM, and also on social media. The invited political parties are CPP, NDC, NPP, and PNC. Participants are expected to be seated by 7 p.m. All COVID-19 protocols will be observed.
A lot, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about all that you've missed. I have Fatima too from the NPP with us, Gabriela from the NDC, and Anekia, who's a youth activist, so she's kind of swimming in the middle with me on this. But you were saying something just before we came back. You were saying that when we go for funding and then
When you're going for fundraising, you have an option. There are many ways of doing fundraising. You can decide to have a dinner and then invite all kinds of people to come and support you. Or you can go from office to office and see who will buy into your message and be willing to support you. And what I've discovered is that it is in the going up and about in the offices that more often exposes us to some of these ridiculous
the harassments. Okay.
I call them ridiculous requests because it's not going to happen. And I don't know why sometimes it's
I
so
feel like
difficult
this is
for
a
them
public
to
service
understand.
announcement from Happy, like, just don't.
No, but it's a very important issue that has to be discussed, especially for the females. And it's something that holds a lot of women back.
Yeah.
In coming into frontline politics, because people are of the belief that somebody has to have something to do with you before you can also get to that level. And that is not the case. In my case, for example, whatever speed I've come to politically, I didn't get there sleeping with anybody.
Okay.
You know, it was about volunteerism. And unfortunately, sacrificing. Sometimes you're going to sacrifice so much, you feel the pinch of your sacrifice. But what I've also come to discover about activism is that your leaders see your sacrifice. You know, so you're not working in vain.
Okay.
They notice,
I hope
they
you've
notice,
heard.
they notice,
we would look at that.
they notice what you're
What
doing.
you do,
Look, we wake up every morning, because it's an election year, have to go from radio station to TV station. Nobody buys our fuel. But then we are always up and about. A radio station calls, oh, we need a rep for this party, for this person, and you are there.
Yeah, there, yeah.
It costs you your sleep. At night, you are up reading what's in the news.
So those are the things, that's the price that you pay to get into frontline or to get, I don't want to say positions, but I mean, you do this and then we win the election, if it's NDC or MPP that wins, and then you've done all this work, so you've positioned yourself as somebody who can do this job, and then you're given a position, for example.
You're given responsibility.
Of okay, very okay. I think responsibility then is better than saying position. But let's talk about getting dirty. It's hard to tell who is harder on, which of the sexes is harder on women, whether it's women that are harder on women or whether it's men that are harder on women in politics. I remember, and this stood out for me when Otiko Jaba, for example, was being vetted, and there was issues about, obviously, the things which come up when women are being vetted, their marriages, their hairstyles, the kind of lives that they lead. And you find that these conversations are not really had, or these same questions are not really asked when men are being vetted. I also remember when Mona Kwate, for example, was being vetted and she was asked about her first husband, who fortunately had died. So very awkward moment, but it really brought to light how there are some things that are judged about women which are not judged about men. I've watched the vetting of some judges, and I'm waiting for the marriage, I'm waiting, I'm eagerly anticipating, So
Well, what do you want to hear? Whether they are single or what?
no, I want to hear whether you will ask him the same question that you asked the woman who was vying for that position. And what disheartens me, sometimes this will come from another woman. And so you ask yourself, are we covering each other? Or are we exposing each other? Or are we being harder on the men? So I guess the question I want to ask is, let me start with you, Fatima, is who is harder? Who has been harder on you? And I'm not talking about being hard on you to bring out the best in you. I'm talking about being mean, just being horrible to you.
It is not sex specific. It's the system or society that is hard on us. Because if you are in an environment where they think for a woman to be a good leader, you should be someone who knows how to keep a husband and keep a home, it is the society, the socialization that is hard on us.
Is it really?
Yes. Because sometimes...
What is the socialization?
Yes. Because sometimes even the people asking those questions don't know any better. You get it? Sometimes, in all honesty, it's not an intentional something to bring you down, but they don't even know any better.
Don't you hear so many times women will tell a story and they'll say, oh, so my father was the one who was encouraging me, but my mother said that you won't stop doing this and find a husband and stay at home. I've heard that story so many times.
Because your mom doesn't know any better. Excuse my language, a weak mother cannot raise a strong daughter. One thing runs through all of us. The family background, the accepted opinion. Imagine if growing up in Moshizongo, I didn't have an opinion, I didn't have a voice. I will not learn how to speak at a campaign rally after 30 years or 34 years. It doesn't come like that. So some of them, even the people asking the questions, don't know any better. And I have heard on countless occasions where people say women are their own enemies. And that's absolutely false.
Okay.
I have actually met women who have helped and others who haven't. And I've also met men who have held unconditionally and others who haven't.
Okay.
So I don't associate that with any sex in particular. But let me give you one example. For instance, we are in communication for our various political parties. Then you have a lot of private media in the country, especially the big ones. For the whole year, for the big shows, they will not even empanel women for up to 3 times in a year.
Yeah. But my issue with that is that we, for example, as a station have been attacked for not doing that, for having conversations and not having the women. And I'm on the morning show, for example. There's so many times when the lead producer says, Anima, call this woman, or call this woman, and call this woman. And you call them, no, I don't want to talk. No, I don't want. Come on, news file. No, I don't want to talk. So what do we do?
We should.
But there are some- there are some
There
other
are
women
so
who are
many
always
women who
out
want
there.
to talk. I think we should be spoiled for choices, especially in this day and age. But I'm not even blaming the media houses. I'm blaming the markets, because they are thinking about the numbers, the streams, how many people, like how the platform, the ratings and all that, and they are not thinking about, let's create content for women or create that kind of platform for women.
Is it because the
So
things
it's
that
a
concern
societal
women are
problem.
different from the things that concern men? And this is to, I mean, every
It's a
all of us.
society. We are in a patriarchal system, and it drives everything.
But I
From
think that things are changing gradually, because I think that these days you have a lot more female voices. Because some of the radio stations, TV stations, for example, we have days where we have female to female. I mean,
Yes,
just last week,
yes.
was the last 2 weeks, she and I were at
Joy
Joy Prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and she and I meet often at City.
I've
and
noticed,
some
yeah.
other
Metro,
platforms
some
as
other
well.
platforms.
So the opportunity is now created. But, you know, for some reason, I think that the men are able to draw, some of the men are able
More
to draw
crowds,
larger
more-
crowds.
okay.
So the media houses prefer
Lean
to go
towards-
after those people, I should mention, because of ratings. And everybody wants to be the one that is being listened to.
Right.
and
you
the
know,
loudest.
So exactly. So that draws a certain, and that's because those personalities also have a particular style of communicating. So they have a wider fan base. We as females, we are more interested in talking about the issues, not so much about the hype. You know, and unless the people listening to us are interested in really discussing issues, they don't even listen to us, because
the
we're not
hype-
coming to sit and insult each
The
other.
hype and the theatrics, yeah, of course, of the yes. I mean, I can
You
imagine.
know, the only
yeah,
time
this
I
could
heard
have
a politician, a female politician, do anything, I think was when Amma Benyodo disciplined somebody in the studio, and that was the first and last time I heard of
You heard of, yeah.
any such incident. But it comes down to both sides. The women are availing themselves, because if we're going to have more females coming into this industry, quote unquote, it depends largely on, as Fatih was saying earlier, what they see, but
Yeah.
also a lot on what they hear. Because when they hear good stories about political activists, that is not, it's challenging, all right, but what industry is not challenging?
Okay.
But there are still some good sides to it. If we get the platforms to be able to tell those stories, then it inspires other girls who are interested in coming into this space to also be drawn into it.
Yeah.
Right now, she's still confused about which side she wants to be in. You know?
No, she has clarity.
So for me, I think the major challenge we are having, especially with women going more into politics, is that one about the issue of gender, where people believe that because I am a female, automatically I should be given a table. And so you see, it's not that people are being prevented, but people are not preparing to get there. Because our understanding is that, oh, okay, if a party is supposed to select 10 people, automatically
5 should be women or 3 should be women. So
but
yeah.
the understanding is that have these women prepared themselves for the opportunity, such that in a case where they are not even sent by the political parties, could the media houses themselves say, due to what this person said and the quality of engagement of this person, want to call the person back. There are times you could, I am not disputing the strength of women. Actually, there are people I sit there and have engagement with, and I feel that these are the best of resources you could have. But then again, there are people you meet and you feel that they carry the agenda on their head, and they feel, okay, I am going into politics, I am a woman, and so I should be given an opportunity. But another thing I also believe is that in going into any field, you learn the rudiments and the modus operandi of that engagement. And so if you want to be a medical doctor, the first thing people do is that they go into school, prepare themselves. So my question then is that if you want to go into politics as a woman, now the first thing is that you understand how the structures work. Then you plan and position yourself to be able to go through them. And so you know that, okay, the challenges of going into politics will be, well, being intimidated, being this. And the question is that what is the plan around that? So I think what happens is that people just go in Zoom, I'm coming, I'm a woman. Then they get there and then they are hit by the hard reality and they do not know really how to work around that.
I
Although
think
male
perhaps
do not feel
because when you listen to Fatima and Gabi, you can see that both of them kind of knew what they were going into. But I think it's almost like having children. No matter how much you prepare for it, when you have them and they are screaming in the middle of the night, you are like, okay, what is this? I knew this would be hard.
But no, personally, whenever I'm given the opportunity to speak to young girls, I always tell them that if you are coming into politics, first and foremost, do not see politics as a career. Have a career.
Absolutely.
that's true.
Because your career is what is going to give you that knowledge, which is your stepping stone.
Okay.
And that is where you can communicate and also play your activist role much more strongly. If you're a small business owner, then generally your conversations and the policies that you'll be influencers have more to do with how small businesses survive.
That's true. Because if you check, politics is more of a game of intellectual discussion. So if you come in and then you do not have a strong
A platform.
then the
to
question
speak
is that
from
what
the-
are you offering to
Exactly.
the table? Then you come
So-
in as
so
empty.
And it's also very competitive. Don't, the fact that we are giving, let's say there's 1,000 positions and 100 women are supposed to occupy that position. Every political party has more than those 100 women. So it is also very competitive. You have to also be you have to up your game.
Up your
Else
game,
the party cannot put square pegs in round holes.
But don't we feel like they put men in round holes who are men who are
happens.
square pegs in round holes? Just
It
because.
happens.
It's because of the system we have. It's as if, as for men,
And
they
the
are
ability to
already
lobby.
entitled.
Yeah.
But we are trying to break that glass ceiling, and we are doing our best. So we can only encourage our cohorts and the younger ones to use the approaches that we use that worked for it to also work for them. As I said, we are not reinventing the wheel. And the underlying issue is to invest in self-development. Because when you go to the rally grounds, you see a lot of women. If you go everywhere, you see a lot of women. Now they are looking for researchers. They are looking for spokespersons. They are looking for consultants on A or B. Then you have to bring those knowledge or those experiences you've acquired to bear. Otherwise, you will still be kept at the background. We still do the arranging of chairs. We still do the posters. We still go to the rallies. We still share the food. But on top of that, you should have some skill that's power or no power, you are able to sustain yourself and volunteer to do the
Right.
political work.
And you should come to the table with some sort
Absolutely.
of substance
Yes.
as well.
Absolutely.
So this is Strong and Sassy. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but it's political season. So next week we'll continue with a conversation of sorts and something like this. But coming up in a few minutes is the 2020 National Political Parties Debate, Education Policy in Ghana. So it's happening at the UDS Multipurpose Auditorium in Tamale, and we're bringing it to you live. Professor Emmanuel Bobobi will be speaking, David Apasera, Dr. Yao Educhum, and Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa. So that's coming up. So more debating and politics for you this evening. So stay tuned for that. But a very big thank you to the three lovely women who have joined me tonight. Fatimatu Abubakar, who's the Deputy Communications Director at the Presidency. It sounds like a very, very, very flashy title. I think I want to be something like that when I grow up. And
You'll be better.
and there's Naneku Efriye-Buzia, who's a youth activist, so watch out for her in the next elections. And of course, Lady Gabriela Teta, member
You guys
Tete,
gave me that lady title.
and Lady Gabriela Teta, member NDC National Communications Team and former staffer at the Office of the Vice President. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. We're
Pleasure
grateful.
having me.
And good luck to all of you. We look forward to seeing you doing great things so that we can follow.
Me, I'm just waiting for us to win the election.
The
and
youth
I'll
are
dance with
the youth are
NDC.
going to be observing them.
The youth will be observing them. This is Strong and Sassy. My name is Animwaa Anim-Addo. We'll do this again next week at 7 p.m. Thank you to Abeku and to Victor Brachi. You guys are amazing. Good night.